Namaskar. Welcome to this session of Straight Drive Panorama. I'm Sudhanshu Mani. Viewers, we are back to a session on writing and readership of books today. Well, as you know, every author has a different and unique take on his or her source of inspiration. Uh, what makes for good writing, philosophy of writing life, and of course, what is more important, affording a good readership. All writers, of course, try to begin with saying something new, bringing something new to the table, something inspirational, something that hasn't been said before. Today, we have with us Mr. Viveik Pandit, who's a freelance journalist, a professor, and a trainer. His students come from the diverse domains of management, engineering, journalism, and finance. But far more than that, he has found his proverbial oasis, so to say, in writing books. He is the best selling author of his novel, By Mistake, which was also his debut novel. And you can see it on your screen now. His other book, a collection of short stories, 21 New Beginnings. We will talk about these two books today. Another book of his is Raani, and in addition, he has penned 4 coffee table books on different subjects: Devalya Uttaranchal, Devalya Uttar Pradesh, Magad, and Business Icons. He has also written scripts for short films and advertising campaigns. His written expressions have found space in newspapers and travel magazines. He has also taken to writing children's books, and a multi-series book titled Donna saw a release in 2015. And viewers, he is from Lucknow. We will be talking about his 2 books that I showed you, writing in general, and about readership today. So welcome, Mr. Pandit.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sudhanshu. It's a pleasure to be here. And of course, sharing this baritone voice of yours. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I'll begin with a question for you straight away. By Mistake, it was your first novel and a surprise bestseller of the summer of 2012, if I remember correctly. So I just finished the book. I had heard about it, but had not read it. And one of the reasons I immediately decided to read it was when I learned that you were from Lucknow. And I have done a series of reviews on books about Lucknow and about writers from Lucknow. Well, it is certainly an honest yet eclectic attempt at writing, or rather daring to write otherwise. Uh, in my view, you do not appear to have succumbed to the populist compulsions of writing a marketable book, but you ended up doing just that because it sold so much. So, 2 questions. Did you expect the book with its witty expressions and racy language, yet a rather non-conventional format of telling a story, to become so acceptable? And looking at the descriptions of let's say, the naval mess, the ghost act in Kasoli Public School, that resort restaurant run by mother-son duo. Well, of course, the Christchurch alumni meet with various characters and so on. So is Shantanu somehow autobiographical, or a large number of characters fashioned about after real people?
All right. That's an interesting spin you've given to your question, Sudhanshu. You began my introduction by telling your audience that every author or writer attempts to bring something new to the table. I will, at the outright, not agree to that.
Okay.
And my experience tells me, at least my personal experience tells me, that a writer with always the first book always tries to release the baggage that he or she carries with him. And the same thing worked for me. Not in even of my wildest of dreams I had ever imagined that one day I'll take to drive writing. And no individual in my family till the longest and distant I visualize has not written anything by way of being published. So this surprised me as well. So by mistake became a natural choice for the first book that I wrote. And as I said, uh, a writer always offloading the baggage that one carries. So a lot of this book carries experiences that I witnessed or I was part of myself. But only I would know what is fact and what is fiction. So there's a mix of both fact and fiction in my expression. But all these individuals, all the characters that you see, they are very close and they're very real characters, and they have been portrayed and carried forward and picked up in this book in that specific manner. So they all found a place in my book because I wanted to tell the story of Shantanu the way it is. And of course, no amount of writing can possibly be totally the truth or the real factual way. There has to be an element of drama and fiction attached to it. So I would stick to just saying that it's a mix of both fact and fiction. And I would repeat myself that only I would know. But this question has been thrown at me a number of times that is this your own story that you're trying to tell? So my answer, like always, will remain that yes and no.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
but I think my best half own knows what is the closest to fact, and I am not going to go beyond that. I would let you continue to make that guess with your expressions.
Yeah.
But yes, so that is the story behind my first book, by mistake, and it will always remain my favorite baby. Though I've gone out to write 15 more such different kinds of books, of course, but this will always remain special to me.
Good. So, yeah, so there are no questions more about that. That's like a hackneyed, a cliched question, actually. But that's a good answer. Actually, it's what you're saying is mostly truth, less fiction, not all traits and well, a character mix, not necessarily all descended into one. I would take it like that. So we leave it at that. And but another, I would say another cliched question, but for me is Lucknow forms the prominent backdrop of the story, both the contemporary Lucknow as well the nostalgic city of the
Right.
60s and 70s or later. Though the story, of course, moves to other parts of India as well. So, tell me, I mean, briefly, was it that your first novel had to be mainly in Lucknow, or is it peripheral to the characters and the story?
It is, Sudhanshu, it is actually very peripheral to the storyline and the characters. And uh, it also became a very convenient way of expressing myself. I have, as I said, that with the debut novel, many of the things writers are not even aware of how to go about it.
Yeah,
Because you go on to write a very long body which you have never attempted in your life. Writing a thousand or a 15-word article is very different from writing, say, 50,000, 60,000 words. So this aspect of knowing the city, I think it worked for me. And it was, of course, an obvious choice having spent my entire life here. Although I'm a Kashmiri, but born here in Lucknow. So as my introduction always goes, that I am a Kashmiri who does not know how to speak Kashmiri. and our ancestors, they moved from Kashmir and settled down around the 15th 16th century in the Punjab region. So Punjabi की टांग तोड़ लेते हैं, and Kashmiri बोलना आता नहीं है, और
Hmm.
हिंदी उर्दू में बात करते हैं, and I write in English. So that has been one of my introduction as well. So this aspect of knowing the city and having lived the city, added the real charm. And why not? I think it was a tribute to pay for my lovely city, and it had to find an expression. And I'm glad it did.
Well, people coming from Kashmir and settling down in Lucknow and writing is an old tradition. Started with the poet Chakbast. And at this stage, let me read something from your book for the readers. So I go to page 33 and have my specs on. So he had wished to sign off at that juncture, but a Saint Bernard chose that very moment to populate the steps. Out for his poof, he showered his wet blessings on the trunk of a neighboring pine. Shantanu decided to scoot. In literal parlance, nature signed off with poetic justice of a canine kind. This is about the Fiat of Shantanu's dad. So when Shantanu arrived at the scene half an hour later, the Fiat had been wiped and cleaned more than twice, reversed from porch and parked in a ready mode under a shade, with Mr. Sridhar rattling the car keys with an expression suggesting the Allied forces had missed the Normandy landing by a mile. I like that. And well, I can go on, but one more. So this is I have always been fascinated by the prowess of the mind, the capacity to store so much despite its size. People, places, moments, colors, sound, touch, and smell, you just name it. And the ever enigmatic, convoluted labyrinth records it. Millions and millions of thoughts, memories, mothballed and retrieved in a fraction, reminding us who we are. They just come to you unannounced, fresh as ever, as if it all happened yesterday. Well, that's beautiful, really beautifully written, the last part which I just read. So I do not know if it's a good question, but I'm also a writer, but I don't write fiction. I write about my work and so on. So I do not know if it's a good question. So do these expressions come rather naturally or have to be rather contrived?
That's a lovely question. Okay, I really appreciate you reading three of these passages, and that clearly goes on to show how well you've read the book.
Oh,
And
no, wait. So I'll have to stop you there. No,
all
I
right,
read the book only 2 days back, and while
okay,
reading it, there were many such instances in the book. I would not, mark the page otherwise, but I knew I was going to meet you. I could have marked hundreds of them. So loved reading it, by the way. Yeah, go ahead.
all right. So I'll reveal a secret. Before or when I thought of writing a book, um, one of my friend sent me an email, and that email, the heading of that email said, "How to write a book in 30 days flat." And out of curiosity, I went through that mail, and one of the opening points was that brevity is the soul of expression, and writing always means that you be as simple as forward as possible in your expression. But somehow, both of these aspects at the moment did not appeal to me, and what really was my focus is just be yourself and express yourself. So I kind of like these convoluted way of expressing yourself, where go even try to go beyond the script but still come out with a very focused approach. So yes, this wit, this sarcasm has been part of the expression right through my book, and but of late, and as per the feedback that I've been getting, or either by way of the kind of writing that readers want to read these days, is more simpler way of expressing yourself. So my writing has definitely gone overseen a change, but otherwise, I love to express myself the way the first book has come out.
All right. So, readers, I come to this book now. Well, so 21 New Beginnings, a collection of short stories. I think 21 your stories and another 21 from what you call closet rookie writers.
Right.
So, unlike that, now I should say famous sub editor who called it rare to write for an author to write a collection of short stories after a bestseller debut novel. Well, I don't think that is rare or an oddity at all. But to my mind, what was indeed rare and even an oddity is in your very second book itself. Of course, you had established by then, giving such space to rookie and closet writers, a couple of whom, as I told you, I actually know and never knew that they had such a flair for writing, is rare. So also gives hope to so many of them. Reading them, not apart from these 21. So tell me a little about this. You encouraging buddy writers, permitting them, so to say, piggyback on your name. Why did you need to do that?
Okay, so this was because of two reasons. After having published my first book, I met so many individuals who would approach me and would share with me the interest in writing and how they would love to get themselves or to see themselves in print. And in my mind, the thought definitely existed that why not give them a chance as well. So I retained that thought with me. And another aspect, which was a marketing of a book. I always believe, and I still believe that author or the writer is the best person to market his own work. Who better person but the author or the writer to explain what the book is really about? So, and I realized with my first debut novel that the more effort I put into the marketing of the book, the better it did, because I was able to garner interest. I was able to inspire others to take to read, not just buying my book, but actually reading the book. So it really took me 6 months of traveling all over India, and so in the process I realized if I and I wanted plus Sudhanshu to change the genre of my writing, so I shifted from writing a long body to writing short stories and true stories, which this book carries. And in the process I also decided to pick up 20 more ambassadors of kind who would show interest in the book by this common fact that we are together as writers, and they would also join hands with me in marketing a book, because writing is a lot of blood and sweat. So why not take it to the last person who is there, and at least who is a genuine reader? So that became a driving force in me to encourage others to why not. I still don't call it piggyback writing. I would still say that it was an honest provocation to them that why don't you share one of your story and I'll have it published along with my writing. So these two reasons combined, and that is how 21 New Beginnings was born.
Okay. So one short comment about that book. I read many of these stories. Most of them I read. About many stories, I was intrigued. I had an I have some inkling, but I thought I should talk to the author because I have a question about most of the stories.
All right.
Fortunately, I think once I come to know you more closely in person, I would take these numbers and call them and get my answers. Anyway, so and now in the end, once again, the inevitable question, cliched, but talking to you, I don't think I'm going to expect a cliched answer, so I must. Well, post R.K. Narayan, Anita Desai, Vikram Seth era, and now Arvind Adiga, Amish Tripathi, Vikram Chandra, and so on. So, what is the change you see in English writing by Indians? That's one. And today, with the reducing attention span of people, audio books, which is becoming such a rage with people driving to work and listening to books. Of course, Netflix, not reading at all and only Netflix and so on. How do you see the readership going forward?
All right. I will answer the second question first.
Yeah.
And from day one, Sudhanshu, I realized that writing is easy and it is making others read where the real challenge lies. And my experience with the publishers to begin with was awful. And but I ignored that aspect and I took to marketing at my own end, and that to a large extent explains the reason why I was able to really get to my reader. And but you are so right. The patience and the attention span is going down by the day. But I still feel, even if there's a small tribe of individuals there who are absolutely crazy about reading and reading good writing, so there's no dearth of such individuals, and that explains I regularly write on the Facebook and on my blog, and of course those bodies are very short, but I realize that people do have that interest and they do catch up with quality writing. So, irrespective of the challenges that we face and the competition that we face with these OTT platforms or Netflix or any of such distractions, which always will be there, it is upon good people like you and me, writers like me, and every other creative individual out there. We have a responsibility to, keep on promoting the art that we carry, and this is a very important aspect of your own personality enhancement, I feel. So it is upon us to spread the good word, and which I have been constantly doing. I've not stopped at my first book. As I said, I've done about 15, 16 books, and I'm currently working on two, three more. Uh, Although I've stopped writing for myself per se, I'm writing for others now. I've taken to writing a lot of coffee table books. I've ghost written books as well, two or three novels as well. So, and I'm writing autobiographies, and they, I've let out the word. I will come back to. I've written biographies as well. So whatever be the challenge, you simply have to carry on and spread the good word. That would be my answer for your second one. And for the first one, I will surprise you by making an admission that since the day I began writing Sudhanshu, I stopped reading others, and that was for a specific reason, that I do not want to be accused of plagiarism, and I strongly believe that thoughts they transcend, and and for a writer to take an idea and to use it for one's own expressions or for one's own profit is very easy. So, and I realized it while I was writing my first book. On a specified night, I read some writer, and the very next morning, I had written a thought which was very similar to what I had read the previous night, Sudhanshu. And I still remember that line. So I stand, I raise both my hands and I admit that that is one line that I have used which does not belong to me. And I realized the folly of falling into that trap. So I stopped reading others. So and for Indian writers, I think they are coming of age as I see around me, as I feel around me. Very honestly, I've not read many of them. I remember having read Anita Nair. I'm really impressed by her writing. And I have read Amish Tripathi as well. And really impressive way of, for that reason, I've read Chetan Bhagat as well. So different authors have propped up from different ages and times. And we are getting better by the way. And we have to remember that English is our second language. And despite that fact, despite that shortcoming, if I were to say that, we have really done well for ourselves, and we are showing it to the world that what really we are capable of. So I see no any limit there, and I don't see why we should in any way feel lesser about the fact that we are writing in a language which does not belong to us, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh, but the fact remains, I will again go back to the second question of yours. It is upon us because language defines us. And I think the expressions also define us. And this small organ that we carry has so much to offer. So why not make the most of it? That is what I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So uh, another question comes to my mind. I'll come to that. But when you say that having become a writer, you avoid reading now, I'm reminded of my own experience when I'm on the podium speaking to young people. So I always say I'm not an accomplished speaker, so I borrow a lot from the intelligence down the ages, starting from my uncles in 13th century or 14th century, Kabir, and then Shakespeare and Ghalib and so on. And with such great people have given us so much wisdom, why should I exercise my mind to invent new wisdom? But anyway, that was not my question. My question was, I just heard you say that you have ghost written a novel for two, three people. Now, that is a little jarring. Why is that?
So that was a phase, Sudhanshu, very honestly, when I needed money. And
Yeah.
I realized that writing and money, it's a bad marriage. And I had, written my share of books to start with. And although they had done reasonably well, but the fact remains that you need to be really big in order to make writing, really profitable.
Yeah.
So it was that phase when, as I said, I needed money, and I was literally there in the market trying to sell my skill. And lo behold, I find an individual who wants to write a book and wants to be a writer, and carries the precondition that my name will not be there. So I realized the emptiness that would follow as I write and possibly post my writing. But then money was the fact that was ruling my moments then. So I said yes. And trust me, Sudhanshu, when the book was being released, me not being there, not even being acknowledged for it, it's a very empty feeling. I went on to do two more books after that out of sheer compulsion, and also by the fact that when I raised my price, even that was accepted. So I had
Yeah.
fallen into the pit that I had dug for myself. So, but I went ahead and completed my assignment. So yes,
Okay.
I will say and only my wife knows that which
Who
are those
actually?
titles. Yes.
So, pleasure talking to you, Vivek Pandit, and viewers. I hope you liked our discussion and you will read these two books we talked about. And we will end the show here. We will be back next Thursday on some other burning issue in Straight Drive. Thank you very much. Namaskar.